Moving from one great guest to another fan favorite, the man himself, Carl Jha. Carl Jha, there we are. Carl Jha, he's a host of Silk and Steel podcast focused on China and surrounding regions and their historical, cultural, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. What do you call himself? Shit poster? I don't think so. I think you sometimes, but usually I think you post great stuff. You can also follow him on its YouTube channel at Carl Jha and on Patreon at Silk and Steel. Yeah, Silk and Steel. Patreon at Silk and Steel. Carl, welcome to the show, my man. How you doing today? You doing all right?
Thanks, Jamar. How are you?
I'm doing good. Better that you're with me. There are several issues that I want to bring up that I'm fascinated by. One, so Brian Berletic was on the show, and he was talking about how there are government plans made by these workshops for all sorts of things. They even have one for like a zombie invasion, right? But in regards to China, one of the things and the ideas they came up with is stop the ability of China to move parcels around the world. Meaning if you could stop their, you may not be able to stop their industrial base, but if you could at the very least stop them from being able to transport products, you can damage the country in an economic sense. So that seems to be move and counter move. China's like, okay, you got your plan, we'll do Belt and Road. Now, one of the items, and I'm not sure if this is even part of Belt and Road, China and Iran have just set up a rail network where they made their first transit of products from China to Iran, going from, I think it was like 40 or 50 miles to 15 miles, basically meaning shortening the distance between them and doing this overland where they can avoid some countries that are effectively Western countries, basically getting around Western influence on their ability to trade with each other. Give me your take on that. I mean, am I right that this is, I mean, granted, there's practical sense of cutting it to 15 miles, but there seems to be also a geostrategic reason for it. Give me a take on this.
Well, this is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. I mean, the whole idea of the Belt and Road Initiative, there's an economic Silk Road economic belt and the Maritime Silk Road. So the belt actually refers to the land route, which connects China to all the way to Europe. And there are many ways to go to Rome, right? And so one way is going from China to Russia to EU, but now because of the war, a lot of the Russia route, a lot of the European logistic companies, they refuse to use the Russian route. So China's like, oh, well, we have alternatives because we also built a southern route going through Iran. It goes through Iran, Turkey, and going up the Balkans all the way to Poland. And but another thing is this is a idea. One idea of China building this multiple connecting node is that United States has always have a boner for blockading China at the Strait of Malacca, right? Because that's where most of the China's energy supply come from. And U.S. Navy make no secret about they want to blockade Strait of Malacca. China's like, you know what? We're just going to build as many connection points as possible. U.S. Navy cannot possibly be at all points at all time. And U.S. Navy certainly cannot airdrop their aircraft carrier in the middle of the desert in Central Asia, right? So this is the land route is pretty secure, and the rail also has advantage that it's faster than the sea transport and it's cheaper than flight. But anyway, most of the European and American airline can't fly through Russian airspace anyway nowadays. So So there's the rail presents a alternative third option, and so China is one of the largest purchaser of Iranian energy, oil and gas. This is another thing that United States really hates. But Trump said we're gonna levy sanction against anybody who purchase Iranian oil. Well, the largest purchaser of Iranian oil is China. Well,
Yep.
I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna increase the tariff back to like 145% on China? We're gonna go back to what happened last month. I mean, this is silly. So like Trump really doesn't have too much card in this. So China will continue to buy Iranian energy no matter what, and there's nothing U.S. can do about it. And some of that oil can be transported now through the rail link. So they're kind of outside the reach of U.S. Navy. And I know like. I don't think even Israel wants to mess with that. Israel has threatened to strike Iran's nuclear site, but I don't think Israel at this point want to particularly antagonize China by bombing this rail link, right? Because China happened. Somebody has posted like how China is the largest trading partner of Israel, blah blah blah. But look, China selling air fryer to Israel. They can't use the air fryer to kill Palestinians, right? Whereas Israel's number 2 trading partner, United States, is actually giving bombs and planes, right?
Exactly.
So if you want to do something about trade with Israel, work on U.S., work on your imperial core countries, and we also know from experience of Russia sanction and Cuba sanction to know that trade sanction doesn't really work. The Western sanction on Russia totally backfire. Even if China cuts off Israel, what's stopping United States from buying those Chinese products and then give it to Israel? Nothing. Right? There's only if China cuts off trade with all the country in the world, like what Trump was trying to do, right? Levying tariff on everybody. That's just crazy talk. So anyway, I just have to put that out there. The idea for China wants to build as much connectivity to everybody as possible. That includes to Iran, and China right now is by one of the main backer of Iran by the very fact that China is the largest purchaser of Iranian oil and gas, despite a U.S. objection.
I'm glad you bring up Iran, because I was going to get to that one also. So, for one, I don't believe Iran is a rogue actor. I'm sorry, that Israel is a rogue actor. I don't think they do anything without U.S. permission, especially from the standpoint of attacks. And even this was taking place, and I'm just using this as for context. I know you're not necessarily big on the stuff with Israel, but this is Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, I believe the Wailing Wall in Israel. Just outrageous. Like, what the hell are you doing, right? And she's doing this as Israel bombs a school. Yes, that's a child in that school trying to get out of fires. So when you point out,
Kristi, no, she's a secretary of the Homeland Security.
Yes.
What the hell is a secretary of Homeland Security doing in Israel? What does her official position have to do with Israel? And what I want to know is, did she go there on her capacity as a private citizen, meaning herself pays the plane ticket to travel to Israel, or did the U.S. taxpayer pay for her trip? Or even worse, did Israel pay for her trip to go to Israel? I mean, there's obviously some serious questions. Why would Israel? Well, we know Israel buys a lot of our politicians anyway, but that question should still be asked. Why is Israel paying our politicians, and why is our politician doing Israel's bidding? Supposedly America first person like Kristi Noem, like, what the hell is she doing? What the hell are you doing?
Carl, that question will never be asked in our media, right? And I'm pointing out both are taking place simultaneously. All right. So the U.S. has come up with this plan to effectively relocate, ethnically cleanse Gaza, working with Netanyahu to do so while pretending as if, oh, we didn't give Israel permission to do this. We don't like what they're doing. And you get other European capitals that have followed suit 2 minutes, after like over a year of them effectively pursuing this genocide. All right. One of the things, and one of the reasons, I know it's a lot of wood to chop. The reason I'm bringing that up is because there is this shum that has been put in the U.S. media that there is a distance between the U.S. and Israel, and that Donald Trump doesn't like Netanyahu, and that there's a split. And as I keep telling people, that split and that distance is only to give space for Israel to do what it's doing without the U.S. getting heat from it, despite the fact that everybody knows that the U.S. effectively backs Israel to the hilt. Iran it's the same thing, right? That now there's media saying Israel is preparing to attack Iran. Okay. Now, knowing full well that China is Iran's biggest trading partner, Russia is arming on with Iran on this. What is China's take on this? I mean, obviously they're not going to like it, but is it just, hey, we don't like you doing this, and that's the end of it? Like, they are going after, as you point out, one of their biggest trading partners in relation to energy, a country that needs energy, especially if it's manufacturing everything else, and it needs it at a decent price. It's able to get it from Iran against U.S. objections, and now even against attacks at this point by Israel. What is China's take on this?
What would that mean? That means when Iran finally detonate that nuclear weapon test, China will just say, "Oh, we're concerned." I mean, that's what it means. Like, China is not going to go out and blame Iran for conducting a nuclear test. China will at most say, "Oh, we're a little bit concerned about this."
That's unfortunate that they've decided
because
to do
right
that.
now this is what they're forcing Iran to do. Like the whole Israel is going to attack Iran. This is just part of Trump's negotiation tactic, right? Trump wrote about this in The Art of Deal, and we're going to make crazy demands, make it so crazy that they will end up accepting what our original demand was. So Iran is not going to back down on this, and certainly not in the face of threat from Israel. And what is going to end up happening is pushing Iran even closer to be a fully declared nuclear power. I saw a post on X. Somebody pointed out before Trump first term, before Trump tore up the nuclear agreement, and at that point, Iran has about 3.3% of refined uranium. They're only they only had enrichment 3%. Now they're more like 60%. They're getting closer to getting that bomb, and everything pointing out that they really should get the bomb, because look at North Korea. United States is not bothering North Korea right now because North Korea has a bomb. Nobody is threatening to bomb Pyongyang at this point, right? Yeah. Whereas if Iran has a bomb, Israel would have to think twice about carrying out a strike against the Iran nuclear facility. So I think at this point, where Iran will probably get the bomb, we're just looking at what the timeline is. When we're talking about when, not if now. And there's not much U.S. can do about it. U.S. can bluff, but at end of the day, I don't think they're going to be serious about going to war against Iran, because we saw what happened when United States went to war against Yemen. A country without air force and air defense, and U.S. Navy lost 3 F-18 jets, right? Yep. And how are they going to expect to take on Iran? I mean, that's just foolhardy. So I don't believe that's in the cards.
So you think it's a bluff?
I think Trump is playing hardball, and I think he's gonna it's gonna blow up in his face, because just like how Trump trying to play hardball on the tariff war with against China. Guess what happened? He just backtracked on his threat to levy 50% tariff on EU again. Like first he said, "Oh, we're gonna slap 50% of tariff on EU," and then a couple of days later he's like, "Well, okay, we'll put an extension. We'll give them 90 days extension." So basically, we're back to square one. Who can deal with this guy? Like, how can anybody take this guy's word seriously? He literally just changes his policy every 2 or 3 days. In a tweet, and And how can you make a deal with such a guy? He's a guy that originally tore the nuclear agreement with Iran. How is Iran is going to trust United States now that even if Trump agreed to this deal and stick with it, which is a big if, how would Iran know the next U.S. president won't just tore up the deal like what Trump did? So
But that's just it. Like, Trump's
I
not
don't
offering
think.
the deal. Like what Trump is offering is a red line for Iran. Like Iran is, they said in the very beginning, this is a red line. And Trump immediately went to the red line and is like, we need you to go beyond your red line, in which case they said, F off. And he's like, all right, but we're going to attack you. See, this is the difference between the sanction war, though. The sanction war, he's dealing with China, a country he respects, regardless of what he says. He still respects Xi Jinping. It's a power center. Even in Russia, he respects Putin. It's a power center. He may complain, oh my God, I can't believe Putin killed these people. Yeah, but all things being equal, one-on-one, mano a mano, you know that you can't test him in this way. Iran is different in the way that I think Trump perceives them.
Well,
and
that's because
one last thing, the people
you're
who are
right.
around you.
You're right. That's because Iran doesn't have bomb. That's Iran doesn't have the bomb yet. If Iran have the bomb, Trump will have to respect them. I mean, so this is why all logic points to Iran should get the bomb, sooner rather than later. And once they have that, they can you don't have to deal with the U.S. pestering, just like Kim Jong-un is not dealing with the U.S. pestering right now. So yeah, there's that. And if you look at the U.S. policy right now, they say they respect Russia, they say they respect China, but United States still providing weapons to Ukraine. They're still shipping missiles to Ukraine. And this is from Donald Trump, the guy who said he will stop the war in 24 hours, after he becomes the president. He said he will stop in 24 hours. and now he was in front of the camera said, oh, I'm very upset with Putin because they're launching missile at Kiev. It's like, what do you expect? You can stop the war this minute, just one phone call to Zelensky, say we are stopping all weapons and ammunitions, because they're spending a lot of weapons and ammunition at the front. There's no way Ukraine can carry on this fight without the weapons and ammunition NATO and US provide them. Stop the ammunition. He can't literally stop the war in 24 hours. He chose not to. And same thing with China. He said, okay, yeah, I respect China. We still want to trade. And then right after they reached the agreement to pause, do a 90 days pause on the retaliatory tariff, guess what Trump did? Trump slapped new AI restriction on China. They banned NVIDIA. So NVIDIA was banned from selling their top of the line AI chips to China. So NVIDIA didn't like that because China is their main customer. So they come up with the idea to sell this newer version of chip, just especially made to China, called H20. And now Trump says, no, you can't even sell that to China. You can't even sell this like watered down version of AI chips to China. And this is why Jensen Huang went to China immediately after that, because Jensen Huang thought, holy shit, we're going to lose our largest market. And now Huawei is coming out with their own AI chips, which is just as good. And you know what? The other Chinese companies don't have any choice because they can't get NVIDIA chips, so they're going to have to use Huawei chips. What Trump did? Trump said, "Okay, we are going to sanction anybody who uses Huawei chips." And he said, anyone who uses a Huawei chip will violate U.S. export control. Now, when he say anyone, he means anyone. That means if a Chinese company
anywhere around the world
doing business in China, Chinese company doing business in China, if they use a Huawei chip, they will be violating U.S. export control laws.
Isn't that amazing?
Then they will be placed on U.S. sanctions. But a lot of the Chinese companies like, forget it, we're under all kind of sanction right now anyway, and we can't get the NVIDIA chip. What do you expect us to do? We're going to go with Huawei. And just after the Trump announcement came out, Malaysia announced they're going to host a data center hosting Huawei AI chips using DeepSeek So Malaysia is fully going with the Chinese tech stack right now, and we're going to see if U.S. follow through Trump words slapping sanction against Malaysia. But we're going to have to see. But people are making their clear choice now. Kishore Murbani, the former Singaporean diplomat, had repeatedly told Washington, people in Southeast Asia, we don't want to be forced to choose between China and United States. We don't want to choose. We want to do business with everyone. But the subtext he was trying to convey to Washington is like, if you force us to choose, you may not like our choice, because we're going to go with China, and you're not going to like that. And that's what's happening right now. U.S. push, and now these Southeast Asia countries, you know what? Forget it. Our economic destiny lies with China, not with the United States.
They don't seem to get the lessons from history, do they? I mean, look at what they did to Russia. They put, 25,000 sanctions on Russia. And what did Russia do? They just became self-sufficient. And China is big enough where it could become self-sufficient every bit as much as Russia did in regards to saying, okay, well, fine, we'll make this beer here. We'll make this alcohol here. We'll make this airplane here. We'll do this stuff here. In which case, they just built out their own industries, which is the reason why their economy is like at number 4, and Europe is effectively tanked. Why do they think this is going to be somehow different with China and AI or microchips or any of these other things?
You know what? Pentagon, now they're saying, oh, we're going to flood the Taiwan Strait with like drones. We're going to make it a nightmare for the Chinese. Okay, let's look at where drones are being deployed in large number in modern battlefields. This is in Ukraine. Guess what's happening? Both sides of the Ukraine war, their drones are basically, they're all sourced their parts from China. They're all sourced their parts from China to make their drones. So if United States want to carry out drones warfare against China, they have to go to Chinese supplier to get the parts. And this is what happened when with one of the U.S. drone maker that was trying to shut out DJI, because DJI is their largest competition. And China says, you know what? I see what you're doing. You're not going to get our batteries. And now they're complaining to the U.S. Congress that China is unfairly targeting them because China is not giving them the parts they need to make their drone. So come on, all your product is just a wrapper around Chinese component and Chinese technology, right? Because the United States no longer makes anything anymore. And then you want to undercut China. I mean, it's not going to work. That's not how it works.
It doesn't even make logical sense when you think about it. Like the notion of we're competing with this Chinese company. We are going to try to somehow edge out this Chinese company while requiring parts from China. And to double down on that, so this came out from Axios, which is, I suspect is very true. Tech race with China is top intel priority, Deputy CIA Director says. The problem with this is always in the details, right? One of the things that the Trump administration decided to do was cut resources into science. So they cut like physics, the money that we were given to colleges and people in order to study these topics to like 45%, if not 50%. So it's like, okay, so you were trying to have a tech race while simultaneously gutting the very knowledge base that you would have to have that tech race. It makes no sense.
They're kicking out all the foreign students, and they're kicking out all the foreign students. And like a lot of people don't know this, but 50% of the AI talent actually come from China. But in the past, because more attractive career choices in the United States,
they come here.
A lot of that 50% of the Chinese AI talent that come to United States to work in the startups in Silicon Valley. But now Trump is saying, screw those foreign students. We need to create opportunity for our own. Well, okay, I mean, that's great. But the fact is, for the past decades, I would say a couple of decades, United States research institutions have relied on foreign talents, because I know this because my dad came to United States to study in 1985 as a PhD. And when I visited him in 1990 in University of Chicago, I went to his research lab. I look around, It's all Chinese grad students working there. I mean, for the past 20, 30 years, U.S. research institutions have relied on Chinese, Indian, Iranian, Russian, all the various foreign top, human capital. And this is one of the things that people used to say when they're trying to say, oh, we still have this one, United States has this one big leg up against China. That's because our ability to attract top talent from all over the world. Well, guess what? Trump just shut the door on that. Trump just shut the door. And this is why Trump is my president. He's my president for accelerationism. This is like when Chinese people on the internet called Trump the nation builder and the nation being China, they're not kidding. They genuinely believe Trump is actually a Chinese spy, working for the goods of the motherland. But in practicality, that's how it's working out.
That's so sad.
Trump
because you're absolutely right. He's kicked out brains, like you call human capital, smart people who would be doing the research. He's gut the amount of information, like money going to research. The tariffs are going to cause inflation and prices. This is at the exact same time where the dollar is losing value. Treasury bonds, that's another one I want to get into with you. China has become, or what is it? The UK, I believe, has become like the number 2 buyer of UK bond, of US Treasury bonds or something like that. Like China has been, I may be getting the number wrong, but effectively China has been getting rid of treasuries slowly and silently.
See, the one to watch out, people keep on saying, oh, China can drop the nuke on the bond market by selling. But China is actually not being the one that's nuking the bond market. The one that's doing it is Japan, because Japan now is the number 1 holder of the U.S. treasuries. And Japan has publicly said, if Trump is going to continue with his tariff nonsense, they're going to sell their whole U.S. Treasury bond. They didn't mince any words. They said they're going to sell if Trump keep on going with his tariff war business. So and Japan has more than $1 trillion worth of the Treasury bond. So that's going to nuke the bond market even more. And right now, Trump is making enemy out of everyone. This is Japan. Japan used to be like the yes man of the Western alliance, right? Japan used to not able to say no to the United States, but now Japan is threatening to nuke the bond market if Trump persists on pursuing this tariff war against Japan. Because for Japan, the Trump tariff on foreign auto is an existential issue for them, because Japan, the large part of the Japanese economy actually do depend on export of their auto industry. And their auto industry is going to hit really hard by this 25% tariff on all foreign autos and foreign auto parts in the United States. So for them, that's not the issue. They're not going to back down. And this is why they're issuing this ultimatum of selling U.S. treasuries. And this is why, the interest rate has been going up and up in the United States. And that means United States now will have to, U.S. government, when they inevitably have to borrow more money to pay down the old debt, they're going to have to pay more and more in interest. This is how, and the so-called Doge, forget about it. The Doge, they're just scratching the surface. Yeah. They're just scratching the surface, like because all the money that Doge supposedly have saved, that doesn't even match the new increase in our defense budget, because our defense budget is now officially over $1 trillion.
Carl, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. The richest man on the planet decided to try to cut funding by firing some of the poorest people in the country and going after Social Security, Medicaid, claiming that this waste, fraud, and abuse, which is why they were firing all of these people who were basically making minimum wage, or not minimum wage, but making it basically a livable wage. Meaning it wasn't like, this view of a man who has like $500 billion going after people who make $40,000 a year is horrendous, right?
But we need $1 trillion Pentagon budget, and we're not even at war. Well, not officially. We're not even at war with China yet.
By the way, it gets even worse because what they're trying to do and pass the budget, this big, beautiful budget that they're talking about, is going to put $15 trillion on the U.S. debt. And Donald Trump has been lying to people. Say, oh, no, it's not going to do that. And you get Republicans freaking out saying, oh, my God, he's putting $5 trillion on the debt now, $15 trillion over the next X number of years. And so Doge say, what, $150 billion? It makes no sense.
Yeah. It's chump change. It's chump change. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just outrageous that's the way you're going to save money by destroying social services.
Well, I mean, that's the way they always do it, Jamar. You know, it's just they say they hate socialism, but they love socialism for the rich.
Yes, they do.
It's always socialism for the rich, capitalism for everybody else.
Yes, they do. They're giving themselves trillions in tax cuts, trillions. Yeah. And even Trump's no tax on tips, it took a Democrat to add that to it. Trump and the Republicans didn't add it. And this may be a fool's choice or conversation, right? Because this is going to die in the Senate, or at the very least up to this point, it's dying in the Senate. Yeah. So we'll see. But China has moved into the number 3 spot. Britain has moved into the number 2 spot regarding treasuries. So they are dropping some of this.
Well, because China is not buying new treasuries. So when they're just holding their old treasury holdings until maturity, and then they're not putting more money to buy new bonds that's been put on the market. Because now all the dollar surplus China get from their trade surplus, they just invest in Belt and Road project. This is why United States really, really hate Belt and Road project, because they want China to plow their money into the U.S. bond market.
And
This is why before, Janet Yellen keep on going to China, because that's what she wants them to buy bond. This is the thing. Trump said he's worried about the trade deficit, but he's not allowing the U.S. company to sell China the American product that Chinese actually want to buy, like AI chips, like the high-tech products. The China is willing to pay big bucks for them. China used to pay like $450 billion in chip imports. That China used to. That's more than what China spent on importing oil. But United States, no, we're not selling that. The best we can do is soybeans and corn, right? And China's like, okay, you know what? There's only soybeans and corn. So many soybeans and corn we can consume. Okay.
I have big, beautiful cows, pigs, but no chips, no manufacturing, no technology. So but it's. In a geopolitical sense, do you see this as both countries trying to insulate themselves from one another? I mean, Trump being overtly about it in the way he's doing the trade wars.
That's what's shaping up. This is kind of the world that United States have been pushing for. Yeah, that's the first Trump term since 2018. China that didn't want that, because China was perfectly happy with the post-war system, and that's why China is actually now the status quo power. People try to pose China as like this rising challenger. No, China is the status quo power right now. It's the United States is a disruptor of the international order. They talk about rule-based. That's why they talk about rule-based international order. They don't talk about international order anymore, because obviously when they talk about rule-based international order, they're not talking about United Nations. They're not even talking about ICC. They're talking about the rules made from Washington. But so right now, the way that U.S. is pushing for, we're going to look at like a Cold War 2.0, right? But this is because people in Washington think, okay, we know how that Cold War 1.0 played out. We won that war. We'll make you into a Soviet bloc, and then we have this Western bloc. We will win. But except what United States right now is trying to do is trying to build a wall between United States and its allies, and China is doing business with the rest of the world. So if there's going to come down to 2 blocks, U.S. bloc is going to end up in the position of the Soviet bloc in the Cold War 1.0. It will be a much smaller bloc, both in terms of economic size and influence. China will encompass everything else. They will do business with everybody.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that
this
you're
is
busy
what
on
they don't
board for
realize.
this. Yeah, I don't even get the sense
They
that
don't
you're on
realize
board
the
for this.
balance. They don't realize that the balance of power have shifted. The Pentagons are still practicing like to fight Pacific War. They think they're going to fight Pacific War 2.0 against China, but they don't realize if in a Pacific 2.0, China is in the position of United States in 1941. The United States in the position of Empire of Japan in 1941 in terms of industrial capacity, because
Right.
China has so much more. China is a manufacturing superpower now, not United States.
Right. Carl, illuminating conversation. And I agree with you, by the way. I do, like a country of 1.4 billion people that is a manufacturing hub for the world. And those factories, in the same way that we did, hey, we don't need you to produce cars, we need you to produce tanks. Okay, same thing's true for China. Hey, we need you to produce, armaments, bullets, guns, etc. China is a massive manufacturing hub. And to give a comparison, like the US back in the 40s was able to effectively fill the Russian military or the Soviet military and put two militaries on both sides of the globe because that was our manufacturing base. We have a service economy now, and that we don't have that capability. China does.
Today, China has 200 times the shipbuilding capability than United States. And U.S. Navy is going to South Korea and Japan for help for the naval buildup against China.
Just amazing. Wow. Carl, thank you for this. It's illuminating, to put it mildly. Like our system is maddening, and it makes no sense. And I get the sense a lot of this is being done out of desperation, not out of planning and thinking through it. And how do we deal with this? I get the sense that these guys are moving out of desperation. Oh my God, this horse is almost out the barn. How do we maintain primacy? And I don't think they have any idea how, frankly. Carl Jha, man, always appreciate you joining me, man. I love these conversations. Carl Jha, he's the host Silk and Steel podcast. He also is on YouTube under Carl Jha. Definitely check him out on that too. Focused on China, surrounding regions, and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. You can follow his podcast at Steel Silk In, and subscribe to support their podcast at patreon.com, Silk and Steel. And definitely check out his podcast, because as you point out, you go through historical events like week by week over Chinese history going back, 4,000 years?
I'm at 400 BC right now.
Wow. That is mind-blowing, right? I remember watching this thing, and I'm going to let you go, but I remember watching this thing on Britain for 1,000 years of history, and they're starting off like at the very beginning and moving on, and after a while, you're like, okay, wow, this is impressive. And then you multiply that by 4 times. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's just astonishing. Thank you, my man. You be safe, okay, Carl? Thank you for this.
Anytime.
All right.